From the center of the galaxy, this is ForceCenter, show about Star Wars, pop culture, and the ultimate adventure, life itself. I'm hitting all the syllables because I'm Ken Napzok.
I'm Joseph. Try to enunciate Scrimshaw.
My natural state is mumble mouth, but I like to move my lips. We are here to answer a Star Wars question from one of our beloved ForceCenter friends over on our Patreon page. A lot of fun doing these. But before we get to that, we also like to remind you that we are sponsored by our own merch shop. It seems like a little bit of hubris. It's not. We just want you to be aware of it, okay? Head over to Fourth Wall. We're still on TeePublic. If you like the TeePublic stuff, we're there. But we like to highlight Fourth Wall. You can get our logo on things that you can use. Joseph, you and I were talking about this. Mm-hmm. You can drink from ForceCenter.
Yes, you can. And I someday will get a damn ForceCenter mug that I can. It's the simplest thing, and yet life. Anyway, Don't be like me. Buy something from our Fourth Wall shop.
Buy something. T-shirt, something to help represent ForceCenter on the galaxy. Star Wars Celebration Los Angeles going to be here sooner than you think. All right. Inside a year. And we'd love to see you all wearing ForceCenter gear. We'll have some too as well. So go to forcecenter-shop.fourthwall.com, forcecenter-shop.fourthwall.com. We're also still growing over on Patreon. Are we not, sir?
Yes, we are. We are building to a goal of 417 paid patrons as of this recording. We're at 403, so we're really happy to be keeping up over that 400 number. I know it's a difficult and strange time out there for lots of folks, but the Patreon numbers really, really help us to keep everything afloat here with ForceCenter. So we had a goal to get to 417 by the time of the announcement of the release of the physical media of The Mandalorian and Grogu. Didn't quite make it, but now we're shooting for maybe around October 1st. We would love to get to 417 paid patrons.
That is a good goal, and we'd love to have you in there. Again, you get into our ForceCenter Discord. You get the link to call into our live call-in shows and get to ask us questions like this one today. Mm-hmm. All right, we're going to Benjamin Wildner, and he asked the question. It's kind of like, hey, were Carrie Fisher and Princess Leia always as intertwined as it's viewed now? Here's the question. Listening to the recent episode on Legacy, that, if I may plug, was our interview with Star Wars Legacy author Madeline Rue, old pal of ours. I really enjoyed the interview. We covered a lot of ground from Ewoks to the legacy of Carrie Fisher and the legacy of Leia. So check that out. Thank you for listening to that, Benjamin. And he continues his question. Do you feel like how Carrie Fisher and Leia are depicted has converged since Carrie's death? Each being remembered as having a stronger resemblance to the other with more overlap than there used to be. I thought this was a fascinating question that made me think back to when I was 7, 8, 9, 10, and to where I am now at 50. So, Joseph, where do you go with this legacy question?
Yeah, I think this is a really great, interesting question. And am I remembering correctly that on your great interview, you're generously saying our, but it was your interview with Madeline. It's on our channel, but you did the interview.
Down. Yeah.
Wasn't there discussion about Madeline listening to some Carrie Fisher words? Is she prepped to write?
Yes, she revealed that before she wrote every morning, she listened to Carrie reading the Princess Diaries. Mm-hmm. Get into that mindset because, in a way, they're one and the same, or at least, as the question asked, it's how it's viewed now.
Yeah. So that's great, and I think that's a great jumping off point and such an amazing detail from Madeline's process. Mm-hmm. I think that it is different than when we were younger, and I think they have converged, and I think part of that was Carrie Fisher grabbing the reins of her own life and embracing the legacy. And I think, I'm a big fan of her book, Wishful Drinking, and the live show, which you can still find somewhere sometimes on old streaming. Version of that, and I want to feel like that's when she really, she made jokes, but they really crystallized in that era of kind of early to mid aughts. I think I don't have the information in front of me, so don't quote me. She did all the jokes about will I go to these conventions and people tell me they had this relationship, they've thought about me 3 times a day, and makes her good jokes about people being weird to her, but also talks about it's my head on a Pez sensor. That's my face too. And, her great jokes, which I think she did at when George Lucas won an award somewhere of he owns my likeness so much. Every time I look in the mirror, I have to pay George Lucas $5. So, she's definitely, she stepped into her fully publicly her own voice.
Hmm.
Carrie Fisher, I think, really owned it in a way that was like a million great, funny, blistering jokes, but she was always a person who joked from truth.
Hmm.
And I think it was an acceptance of, in the public's mind, we are one and the same. And then I think as she talked about it more, there was more sense of like, yeah, I put myself in that character in the first film. And then once everybody knew who I was and what I could do, then those next two films, it's just, we're
Hmm.
aligned,
Hmm. I agree with you on the big overall statement too. That it was viewed differently. It was just discussed differently.
Mm-hmm.
This, I think, is in thanks to the looking back cottage industry that
Mm-hmm.
we love. How many times have we said Empire Dreams is one of our favorite things to just put on? And I think that's one of the early moments for me as a fan, as someone who grew up enjoying both these people, Princess Leia and Carrie Fisher. I'm a big fan of When Harry Met Sally, when she'd show up in other films and be like, "Hey, Princess Leia." So that was that, but it just wasn't discussed like that. But once she started becoming more open, I love your point of once she herself really tried to, and I think successfully, take control of her narrative, including her struggles, including the way she was shamed
Mm-hmm.
and body shamed. I remember the tabloid photos of a slightly older, slightly heavier Carrie Fisher being like, "This is the steel bikini girl." Like there was a lot of that, going
Yeah,
on.
around like 89, early 90s, there
Hmm.
was a lot of, just horrible body shaming and stupidity and
Yeah.
cruelty.
Yeah, and I think to get ahead of that, and when you hear the stories, and she tells all the wonderful stories, sometimes not over and over in a cynical way, but just they're her stories to tell. They wanted me to lose 10 pounds, 5 from each cheek, and
Mm-hmm.
and all those kind of things. But in Empire Dreams, she has that moment of like, well, George cast us to type, and in hearing and looking up and even kind of researching more of the casting of the big three when I was putting together my book, Weapon of Star Wars, I was going through some interviews and stuff. And it more than I think I knew, I won't speak for you, but as a kid was like, George was kind of casting, like it needed to be the three.
Mm-hmm.
And if it wasn't going to be Kurt Russell, Carrie Fisher, Mark Hamill, it wasn't going to be Harrison Ford, Mark Hamill, Terry Nunn. It wasn't going to be any of that.
Mm-hmm.
It was going to be either these three, these three, these three. And so he found these three that very much are the roles, right? Over
Mm-hmm.
time. And I think that was just subconscious. And I think that's where it kind of started. And there's more to
Mm-hmm.
talk about. But I think that's where in mid 2000s, when you're hearing more of that from Carrie and others.
Yeah. And I think he totally cast a type. And I keep bringing up this this great book from BFI that is their whole series of books about seminal films, and they just
Mm,
have different journalists, scholars do interviews or do essays, and his essay is so much about the documentary approach, and Lucas really
mm,
like putting the camera far away with a lens that looks close up when it's filmed,
mm,
so that the actors can just feel like these three people are hanging out and we forget that we're being filmed. And I think his
right.
casting type really worked. I think he gets talked about a lot. The fact that Carrie Fisher makes the jokes, and I'm sure it was on Lucas's mind, the fact that, hey, there's a bonus that she is Hollywood royalty, that she is a princess of Hollywood,
Hmm.
being the child of Eddie Fisher and Debbie Reynolds. But
Hmm.
I think that gets talked about like in the same way of the casting of, I'm so tired I'm forgetting very famous people's names. So the casting of Halloween, the original Halloween, which also Scream Queen
Mm,
royalty
right.
from daughter to mother.
Yeah.
Jamie Lee
Jamie Lee
Curtis
Curtis.
is Laurie Strode. Um,
Hmm.
but I think there is kind of a deeper thing of like Carrie Fisher was on display for her entire life, right? There's,
Right. Right.
paparazzis everywhere. So I think two like really strong qualities that came from Carrie Fisher's actual life is just that incredibly deep intelligence and wit that
Mm,
comes with
mm,
intelligence, in that just that strength and that ease with the sarcastic line that betrays just like such depth of intelligence. Um,
hmm.
and then also knowing, the part of Leia that's been really, really developed in recent years. I think it's there, but it gets really explicitly called out in the books and comics of like
Mm,
the burden of being the public face, of like, It's in Empire
Yeah.
Strikes Back that she feels like she's the leader of the rebellion and she doesn't have room for her own emotions and all that. It's there in the movies, but it gets really, really developed as a concrete thing. And I think that's something that that Carrie Fisher really had of, like, I know what it's like to be under the spotlight and you're representing your family in every interview and there are things you feel, but you can't say, especially at that period in her life where she was just starting out. And, you know, as she talks about in Princess Diaries, like, this is my big step into the world. Like, I had a role in Shampoo,
Right.
which is a weird and great film. But she's fabulous in. But that wit, that strength and intelligence, and that sort of burden of being the public face, I think that's some of the stuff that was inherent to Carrie Fisher's life that George very wisely saw and knew he needed and wanted, and she gave to Princess Leia.
Yeah, and absolutely. And look, later on, you know, I'm not suggesting that, you know, Leia had some of the same struggles that Carrie had in terms of substance abuse or anything like that. I don't necessarily think that showed up, but just the weight of that, the weight of the losses or the journey. I think it really was present in the sequel trilogy. I felt it more, and then we had her out and about doing this wonderful series of interviews, right? The classic one with Gary, the dog being bored, and not that you know of is one of my favorite interviews. The famous red carpet interview where she kind of is going off the path in a wonderful Gary way, and Oscar Isaac has to go pee. It's spectacular. I think we just felt we got to know Carrie in a way we maybe hadn't been before with this new go around. And then it just was easier to see it in Leia than maybe in the past, for me at least.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with that, and I think a lot of it has to do with her, coming into her own too, because there are those early interviews throughout the original trilogy. Like there's clips of them being interviewed for, I think, a French television station, and she's the only one who can actually speak French. And other British outlets and that, and I'm trying to find the right words. We know now, because she eventually really came forward and became a writer and owned her own voice and got it out there. The massive depth of her intelligence and wit and understanding of Hollywood and understanding of the Star Wars story and its power. And some of these, dude interviewers in the late 70s, early 80s are just like, you are patting her on the head like she's a child and she can run effing circles around you in intelligence and wit. She could do a 10 million times better interview than you did, French dude who's patting her on the head, and it's weird to watch those where the well of strength and intelligence that this woman is, and she's only letting it be seen a little bit because she is being put in a box by the system of the serious man asks the silly girl the simple question, and when she makes a sly little joke, they don't even get it. And I think for me, that's part of the journey of she got to a point where she's like, all right, MFers, I'm not playing the game anymore. I wrote this book about my truth. I've been through hell. I've been through these marriages. I've been through this substance abuse. I've reckoned with being the daughter of Hollywood royalty. I've reckoned with my father running away from me to publicly divorce and then get dumped by Elizabeth Taylor. I've reckoned with the fact that my mom kind of loves me with all her heart, but kind of wants me to be her mini me, and I'm not. I never became a singer the way she wanted me to. Like, she put all that out there. By the time she's doing press junkets for Postcards on the Edge, she's putting her whole life on display. And it's such a turnaround from I am being controlled by the system in those early interviews and being held back by the system.
The first, this is one I did write about. God, is it Michael Douglas? Is it Mike Douglas?
Might be.
It's the summer of '77. My friend Dan Farron gave me this on DVDs. You might watch, and then you can find it on YouTube. I think that's what it is. Maybe I'll look it up while we're chatting. But I really would love, all of you should seek it out. It is from the summer of '77. So Star Wars is a hit. already, but it's not like, we're a couple months into it. It's doing well, right? We know it's, and it's an interview, and it's like one of those, like, coming up next, Carrie Fisher and the stars of Star Wars. And she's highlighted because, of who she is. Harrison and Mark are these dweebs that are in a movie with her. Everyone is a little more muted, but she is exactly as you describe, because it's one of the first big interviews, I think. And you can see the sparkle quickly fade into, I can't step out of line. They don't want me to step out of line. I'm not being asked to step out of line. I am Carrie Fisher of Fisher Reynolds fame. I am Carrie Fisher, the damsel in distress. And you can see her start. It's fascinating to watch. And you can see how eventually, I think that cage is shed. She rips it off as she goes on in time. And some of that French interview you're talking about, and some of the other things. It's a fascinating thing to watch. It's like the beginning of it.
Yeah, it's just like, when I mean, it's very, very specific because of all of the dynamics of the era, gender, right, her responsibility to her family legacy. There's a lot going on with that, but I find it relatable because there are situations in life where one chooses to present oneself one way, and you have people who are open and listening and go, oh, I'm receiving the information of who you are. And there are other people who are just like, I have pre-decided who you are, and I will put you in a box. Like, I mean, even like, I'm sure you've been through this of like, you are a charming, funny guy, but if somebody decides you're a dweeb who talks about Star Wars, no matter how much sparkle there is in Ken Napzok's eyes, no matter how many funny things you say, they won't let it be heard. They'll just talk over you because they've put you in a box. You're Star Wars dweeb. And they will not receive the information that everybody else can see. They're like, that ain't who he likes Star Wars. But that's not, and it just feels like that of like, it feels like a bad Saturday Night Live sketch from the 70s where like, what if you're really funny at a party, but everybody steps on your jokes?
Yes.
And you can't show people who you are. It feels like she's, can't show people who she is yet.
Totally. And I did, because, our brains work this way. It is the Mike Douglas Show, aired July 20th, 1977. It was 2 months after the movie's premiere. Carrie comes out first. They bring her out first. Then they bring out the other dudes in the film with you. And it's fascinating. I highly suggest you all seek it out. It really backs up what Joseph was saying of you watch her grow. And I think by the time we all kind of meet up with her again, not necessarily fans like you or I, but like in the big general public sense of the word, 2014, 2015, Mark Hamill and Carrie Fisher are kind of returning the spotlight in a way that they hadn't been. And yes, Mark Hamill, one of the greatest voice actors of all time. I know that, but it's easy to forget that now he was a footnote in a lot of people's pop culture history books. Carrie was talking about Carrie, she did the drugs. Like there was that thing, and they come back, and I think now she is, and it's tragic, and we'll talk about the loss because I do think it's very much baked into the question here, but to watch her fire on all cylinders and the way she wanted, and there ain't nothing you can tell her differently. There ain't nothing, no way that box or cage is going to be put around her. And I think that became so powerful that's also kind of how we started to see the character of Leia, or added on to it. It was already felt that way.
Yeah. That 2015 Good Morning America Force Awakens interview, part of what is so incredibly funny about it is it's the entire opposite of her early reviews where she's trying to play the game and be like, oh, who do you need me to be? Do you need me to hold my intelligence and wit back? She, instead of playing the game, she destroys the game. That's what's so funny about the interview. Of like, I'm going to answer questions, but I'm going to acknowledge things that you're not supposed to acknowledge. I'm going to make jokes about how the interviewer hit the the genetic lottery jackpot, it's just, she just like, I won't play the game. And you hear the laughs of like the camera people and the producer of she's poking at the artifice of the system of like, I'm going to come on here and I'm going to say real shit and I'm not going to play the game,
Yeah. Look at your dog. He's bored. It's one of my favorite moments. One of my favorite moments. Yeah, so let's talk about the tragic end, and look, she did live a hard life, and there was so much stuff, and she was 60 and probably appeared and maybe physically was older. Those are some realities that I don't want to run from as a fan. She couldn't, and she didn't, and I think and I've told this story before, but I was honored to co-host a panel with another person whose name shall not be mentioned, but in Chicago, Wizard World, and it was 2 months before she passed, and it was a spectacular experience. She was exactly who she wanted to be. Her first words to me were, "I need to change my pants," like in the most Carrie's way. I got to feed Gary the dog. I got to look in her eyes and think, "This is Hoth Leia in front of me." But the most memorable things were the questions from the audience of the young girls who were like, "Yeah, hi, I'm 10. I've just been diagnosed with bipolar disorder, and thank you so much. And my service animal's named Leia," and like that was her legacy to me at that time. That's what cut through all the other bullshit. And she had all her stories. She had the Pez dispenser store. She had the 5 pounds from each cheek. She had all those things. She also knew the words to the Life Day song. Holy crap. It was an amazing thing. But it's fascinating to watch. And so at that time, and she passes, which is still unbelievably sad and tragic. And at that time, this is 2016, and I don't think we can, nor you and I want to run away from what happened in the fall of 2016 with the presidential election here in America. And Rogue One's out. I Rebel is a sentence that's suddenly being played along, and the image of Carrie Fisher as Leia, a young Leia, becomes a little bit of an icon at the time. And I think that starts to change the conversation, too, in a way with the question here.
Yeah, no, I that's a really good point about just the iconography of Leia and Carrie becoming just deeply intertwined. And she isn't around anymore to sort of make jokes about it, and I don't think she wanted a distance. I mean, I think so much of the jokes that she made about Leia are like processing it from her perspective of, her mother was, singer and a dancer and an actor, and like this more sort of traditional way, and then she got famous for a space movie. And there's always a little bit of like, and I mean, everybody kind of makes fun of the Life Day thing, but I think part of that is like, everybody was still singing in the 70s. You were still getting albums that were like Jack Webb puts out his album because if you're famous, you put out an album. And Carrie Fisher had a beautiful voice, and in another world, she could have been one of the greatest living pop singers. She had a tremendous voice, and I think there was some pressure of like, hey, why don't you go that way with your life, So I think she's processing Leia from all these like, well, I could be all these things, but I'm a famous space princess, and lots of folks have a deep attachment to a gold bikini that I have mixed feelings about. And then I think something changes as she understands Leia from other people's perspectives. And I think some anxiety of like, I have respect for the films, I have respect for all this, but I'm kind of old school Hollywood, and this is what I'm famous for. Like the same way Al Guinness was like at first, like, cool, I was in a movie. I played a mentor and I got a higher percentage cut. Great. And then it was like, wait, none of you remember River Kwai? I'm just Luke, go to Dagobah guy. F you all, right? Because it's not about disliking Star Wars. It's about how dare you not value everything else I did? How dare this be the only thing? How dare this be the number one line in my obituary? And I think I think Carrie might have had some anxiety about until she understood from everybody else. Like Leia is an icon. She made me believe in myself. She made me step up. From men and women and people of all gender. I think Leia was incredibly important to me because Leia, having a character that intelligent, that kind and intuitive, but brooks no bullshit, was an incredibly great female role model for me to be like, how should I think of women in the world at a time where you got plenty of feedback that you should not think of women as highly as one should. So even for me, Leia was like, I could have spoken to Carrie Fisher about. So I think she just allowed that overlap to be like, if that's what I gave people, whether I intended to or not, then I'm not going to take that from people.
I think it's an excellent point. And going back to, we've talked about it before, and it's both a sign of the times and what we're talking about. Like, Leia's it, Beru and Tornfar and Mon Mothma, but Sice Noodles, Ula. But Leia's it. Yeah. Leia's it. That's all we got. And if that's all we got, holy crap, did we get the best? Did we get the best of being a role model for all people? But I think you're right. Even thinking back to that interview that I was able to do on the panel, like we had all our silly questions. The audience had a lot of like in episode 3 stereotypical stuff, and she played it, and she was great. But even at, like there a question came about, hey, so you ghost? I didn't ask it. You ghost did some ghostwriting in the prequels, right? What was that like? And her answer wasn't. Let me tell you, her answer was, and you guys like you made it like work. Like you guys are the problem. I literally was like, not me. Listen to ForceCenter, not me. But that stuff stood out. But again, it was the interactions with these young, in these cases, two girls that asked these questions. She ended the panel on that one. This girl comes up, and it was towards the end, but she was like, "Hey, you mean this to me? I'm 10, 11." There was one girl asked about how do you have a good relationship with your dad? How do you fix your relationship with your dad? And I saw, and Carrie ended that panel. It was again towards the end. It wasn't like she cut it off 10 minutes in, but. This girl asked this question. Here's my dog. It's named Leia. And Carrie's like, come up here. We're done. She said, we're done. And I'm getting emotional thinking about it. She brought this girl up. She brought the girl backstage. And to me, that's what you're talking about. Of her going, not like, hey, this is what it's about, Pat, but like, this is where the journey has brought me. And I think it, from my perspective, and I think you're so right, of just like, that's when the conversation really changed. And then she, God damn it, passes away. And God damn it, I would have loved to have seen her on Twitter before it became X. Mother effing Trump and his cronies. I would have loved to see it. She was already doing it. I think she would have been Last Jedi's greatest defender. She would have been Rise of Skywalker's greatest defender. I think she would have absolutely been just a force. That's one of the tragedies of losing. But I think that in the fandom is when the conversation really starts changing, where they forever are intertwined at that point.
Yeah. And I'm thinking back to like some of her just delightfully bonkers at the time Twitter posts with all sorts of like emojis and like, Force Awakens did that big campaign of different billboards highlighting different folks, and there was one of Leia, the character, right above Cantor's, absolutely, baked into Hollywood history. And she's like, here's your space princess floating over Cantor's. Like she did encourage the connection of we were kind of one and the same, at the end of her life. And I think, to your point too, I think in the sequels, she did bring in her pain. And I think she, obviously I think there's been more reporting and more discussion of, that the sequels were hard on her, of them once again wanting her to lose weight. And, Ryan Johnson has spoken about, like, she had some up and down days. And, I think, I celebrate what she contributed, but they were also hard on her. And I think the fact that Leia in those films is so coming from a place of like some of the worst things possible have happened, but I'm going to be resolute. I'm going to keep going. That, all of which sort of dovetails into that quote that's attributed to her of take your broken heart and make it art. And I think I think that for me, whatever was truly going on in her heart, in her mind, and her struggles toward the end of her life, I think that intention, that spirit of take your broken heart and make it art is so Leia of don't give up hope. And
you have everything you need.
You have everything you need. Take your broken heart and make it art is yes, it is. You have everything you need. We all go through pain, so turn it into something beautiful that'll help you, that'll help others. It's such a beautiful sentiment. And I think, even though she was going through struggles that I don't think we all entirely understand the depth of during the sequel era leading up to her incredibly sad passing, I think some of what she was putting out in the world was true, and so very aligned with where Leia was in the sequel trilogy, which I think probably even further cemented one and the same.
And why she remains our princess or a general, and always will be. That's it. A lot there. Great question, Benjamin. Any final thoughts here, Joseph, on what this all means and why Leia Kenner action figure means even more now? I mean, I have a wall of modern day figures. I have from the Rebels figure all the way to Last Jedi, because I think there was a Rise of Skywalker one, unfortunately, right? she means the world to folks like you and I. So,
Yeah.
Any final thoughts?
Not a 3 3/4 yet, but there should be. When in about 7 years, when wait a minute, Rise of Skywalker isn't that bad, and other people get older, suddenly Hasbro will be like, wait. It's always my thoughts go to action figures.
Sure, yes, they should.
Yeah, I think I am extremely grateful to Carrie Fisher and her portrayal of Leia and all of the qualities inherent to Carrie Fisher that she infused Leia with for the absolutely positive impacts they had on my life. As a young man, I wanted a Leia action figure. Those were some of the first figures I wanted. And, at one point I even wanted to play Leia on on the block with the other kids. And my brother's like, you don't do that. You can't do that. Boys don't play girls. But she was there for me to see women in a light that in that era, we were often not encouraged. Young men were not encouraged to see women with the level of respect that so many of us saw Leia. And I'm very, very grateful for that. And then just being honest about your struggles in that beautiful, I've been quoting that, take your broken heart and make it art, because, the Dead Media film, there's a lot in it. It's scary. It's funny. But I was motivated. A lot of it is about nostalgia, and I was motivated to do it. That's what I thought about when I was working on it, of take your broken heart, make it art, because you can't go back, and you got to find a way to deal with that. And I thought about her quote and about her ethos and the great work she did in writing about her own life and Postcards from the Edge and Wishful Drinking and all of it, right up through the Princess Diarist. The amount of honesty in that book just blew me away. So I'm very, very grateful for how much she shared her truth with the world, because it made a huge impact on me.
Indeed. No, well said all the way around. And yeah, I look at my life, I'm just a normal, dumb, straight white male. I'm thankful for two great influences of any good part of me that knows how to at least try to treat women right. Comes from Princess Leia into Carrie Fisher and Liz Phair's 1993 album, Godville. I mean that sincerely. That album and Liz Phair's work did teach me how to sift through the what I was being told at the time in the 90s. And I think having Leia, whether it's just simply barking orders and in a world where she's the only woman in a meeting of rebels, which is sadly and still is probably a reality. I remember sitting in Screen Junkies in a room of 25 people, and my friend Ann was the only woman. And, having Leia to show that, it means a lot to me. It's beyond just a cool character in a franchise that I love. It really did jump off the screen. That's why I think I wanted to answer to talk about this question. So as always, we honor the legacy and memory of Carrie Fisher. And look, Joseph and I are talking about this. As you all know, Jennifer Land is part of the show too. She's on a much needed sabbatical as she chases her higher education goals and professional goals beyond just talking Star Wars too. So we miss her opinion, but I do want to we'll point you to her Jedi Beat episode that she put out a couple years ago, taking the old podcast, turned it into video about the legacy of Carrie Fisher. It's here on this channel too. So if you want to get more of the story and what it meant to Jed, highly recommend you check that out too. So
yeah.
All right. Benjamin, that's a good question. You got me thinking about a lot of things, and I'm going to go listen to some Liz Phair albums today, and we're going to have a good time and maybe watch The Last Jedi as well. We're out of here today. You can follow us on social media at ForceCenter Pod, ForceCenter Podcast on Facebook. Check out the podcast if you want audio-only versions, of course, and rebroadcasted Databank Brawl episodes. And I don't think we ever had Leia fight, did we?
I don't think we ever had any of the big three.
It wouldn't have been fair because Leia would have won.
Leia would have won
anyway. You sliced it.
No, and that was always the spirit of it, of the backgroundish weirdos, and some big people stepped up eventually. I mean, Darth Jar Jar, come on.
Come on. Check that out there. You can get merch at TeePublic, like I said, or Fourth Wall. And support us at patreon.com/ForceCenter. You can follow me at Ken Napzok. Check out my show, The Blathering Live. We're live about 3-4 times a week on YouTube. Have fun, take live calls. Occasionally I have a no Star Wars rule over there, but occasionally a question question gets in there. I said, I'm off duty. You need to go Force Center for Star Wars, not here. But hang out with me there. And Joseph, you're in the middle of the time of this recording, and when the time of this release, you're going to be in a big East Coast swing on your film, Dead Media.
Yeah, by the time this comes out, I'm probably in Philadelphia, screening my film at Mausoleum. That's also a theater. Amazing.
Lovely.
It's really fantastic to get to see all these cool theaters, meet the cool people who run them, meet the more Force Center friends. So if you're interested in seeing if Dead Media is coming to a city near you, you can go to antennareleasing.com/films/Dead Media. Going on a big swing through August 20th, then taking a couple weeks off, then starting around September 17th. We're doing another leg of the Roadshow tour, and tickets for those will be becoming available on that website as we get them locked down. So if you're a Force Center friend, be sure to check that website and see if the film is coming somewhere near you. It would be great to meet you all.
Absolutely do that. Thanks for the question again, Benjamin. We'll see you next time here on Force Center.